Okay, so when you go to buy a battery, you're going to notice that they have certain numbers connected to them, right? And certain cranking amps and things like that. So let's talk about some factors that determine the battery size, right? The engine size, the climate conditions, right? A battery in Ohio might have different demands than a battery in Alaska, right? So, and the vehicle options. You might have a 1972 Nova, which would be very different than a 2015 Cadillac ATS as far as demands go. Now, you'll see this general rule is 1 CCA per cubic inch of engine displacement, but that's not true. You'll end up seeing a 350 cubic inch vehicle with 650 cold cranking amps. You'll see a 1.5 liter with a 250 cold cranking amp, right? So it's not really true. Maybe in a perfect world, but not in our world that we're in. Right, so I want you to look at this little chart over here. Notice at 80 degrees Fahrenheit, we have all of the cranking amp power. At 32 degrees, that drops to 65% of that. And at 0, it's 40. It's less than half. So now you see why you need a battery that exceeds 1 CCA per cubic inch, because as if you had just that bare number, the car wouldn't start as soon as the temperature changed. Right? There's a BCI group of numbers to verify the battery is the correct physical size for the vehicle, right? You have dimensions. You have shapes of the case that are for battery hold downs. Some battery with a top hold down might not have a flared bottom that other batteries are locked down by. The position of the terminals, in one vehicle, those two terminals might be at the top. But in another car, it might be opposite of that because of location of the hood or whatever. So we have reversed versions of batteries, as well as batteries that the terminals are in the center of the batteries versus towards the side. And then we have height, and we have width, and we have footprint. So there's a lot of things that make one up, and these BCI numbers make sure the one we get is the correct one. So you'll see along the side, it goes far longer than this. But a common one is a group 24, right? Notice we have a 24H and a 24T. That's a battery that is the same physical size, but the terminal arrangement is different. You'll see a 26, which is a popular battery, 33, 34, 36, 42, 51, right? This gives you the different lengths and the widths and the height. There's its millimeters, as well as in inches, as well as the terminal arrangements, which will be in these things. And we have big catalogs that give us that type of stuff. Right, very important. Notice it's in red. Do not allow battery acid to come in contact with your skin, your eyes, or your clothing. Right? If it gets on your skin, it can cause a burn. If it gets in your eyes, badness. I don't know if I shared this with you, but I will right now. When I was roughly 12 or 13 years old or something like that, I was working in a gas station. And it was a Saturday. It was in June. And the owner went to service a battery. So he took the tow truck and he went out to go service it. Well, when he touched the wrench to the battery terminals, evidently a spark was created and the battery exploded in his face. The acid bathed his eyes. He went several months with his eyes bandaged up, where he had to keep going back to have the scar tissue scraped off his eyeballs, and had no idea whether he was going to be able to see or not until they finally deemed that process was over. Right? So safety glasses. And if you get it on your clothing, you won't know anything until you wash your clothes and discover that now you have a hole. Observe the polarity when making battery connections. Some people replace their battery cables and they buy a red one for the ground one and a black one for the power one. So double check and triple check and quadruple check that you're hooking up to the correct terminals. It'll happen. You will be connecting a battery charger and you don't notice, right? Always look, very important. You'll cause some serious damage if you do it backwards. Always disconnect the negative cable first and always connect the negative cable last, right? We talked about that in jump starting. That's the way we do it. Where do electrons come from? They come from the negative side. So we want to stop that source at its beginning. Avoid any arcing or open flames near a battery. So there's something that's interesting. If you went back to those charts, right, you have hydrogen in this solution. Well, that hydrogen, when a battery discharges, tends to create a hydrogen cloud around the battery. And naturally, an open flame, a cigarette, or anything like that can cause the battery to explode. Follow the manufacturer's recommendations when charging. AGM batteries, those gel batteries from earlier, have a very specific narrow band of charging that can be applied to them, otherwise they overheat. So you want to look at what the manufacturer tells you. Only add distilled water when they're low. Do not wear jewelry when servicing a battery. My friend, when we were in high school, had his bracelet come in contact between the positive battery terminal and the fender of the car, and that gold band, that gold chain melted into his skin, right? It can happen with a ring, and you can't get out fast enough. So no jewelry when you're dealing with anything that's a battery, starter cables that come from the battery, anything like that. Very bad. Never lay tools on a battery, even though it's a beautiful flat surface. If it's a top terminal battery, it's not hard for the tools to fall over and make a connection between the positive and the negative terminals. And if that happens, then they weld themselves in place and you can't unweld them. Right? Always wear safety glasses when servicing a battery. And if a battery is frozen, allow the electrolyte to defrost before doing any service. If you have a car with a dead battery, what's in that solution? It's water. What can it do? Certainly freeze if it gets cold. If you hook up a charger to it and try to charge it when it is frozen, it can explode. So bring that battery inside, let it thaw out for a couple hours, and then proceed to charge it.